Thanks for coming on, man. It's funny because obviously a couple of months ago I was on your podcast, The Price of Entry, as a guest, and I was saying to you just before I hit record how strange it is being a guest on like a mate's podcast, because it's got this weird vibe of how do you say it? It's like you've got to try and be a little bit professional, but it's also okay. This is my mate, and he knows what I'm actually like when we're not recording on a podcast. So much better just be able to catch up and have a chat. What's going on?
I know it's this weird sort of like part. Yeah, of course, want to like do Tyson's podcast, but also obligation. But it's not obligation, but also I want to catch up with him anyway. So it's like this, like, am I doing it out of just like, oh, bloody Tyson? Yeah, of course. Oh, well, I have to do his podcast now because you did mine. No, not at all. But also, I don't want to just like catch up because I feel like that won't be interesting for anyone. We're like, how's Jesse and like Charlie doing? Like, what's going on? Like, Kate's doing
no
good.
one cares
like,
about my family.
No one cares about that. So it's not a catch up, but I want to chat to you. But like, it's such a weird mix. It's great.
I came into this conversation so confident about my setup. Now, you've just come in here with the best YouTube setup on YouTube. I immediately got self-conscious. I saw
Do you
my
put this up on YouTube?
Yeah. I've just started to.
I'm glad I got this set up then.
Well, I don't think I'll post it now because I can't have the guests out doing the host because it just looks unprofessional.
Truth be told, though, you didn't take a hiatus over Jan with your podcast. I did. This is partly why I was taking a hiatus over Jan, was to get this set up that, sneak peek, I'll move my camera. Behind the scenes, there's a bit of gaffer tape. There's some old curtains. Like, if you look around, there's like an air conditioner there. I've blocked off the window. Like, I've built a proper little studio. But here's here's the real self-deprecating truth is I don't even put my video up on YouTube. I spent all of Jan getting this set up, and I don't put my video up other than like a 30-second trailer.
Why don't you post it?
I'm too chicken shit. I scratch my nose sometimes. I have a beard most of the time. Like, I'm like, oh, no, I can't be bothered. Like, do you edit it and then put it up?
A little bit. Sometimes I have to edit it. I listened back to myself the other day and I made a note, and I've already noticed I've said it 3 times this podcast. I've got to stop saying like, you know what I mean? And so I like video. See, I just said it again then. Video doesn't actually take out any of the main things that I'm concerned about. Very happy with my appearance, very happy with your appearance. It's my vocabulary that's letting me down. It's my inability to string a sentence together without saying So
it's the giveaway of our lack of actual intelligence. That's the problem.
I've got a friend I do comedy with, and she lives in Ocean Grove. I was there a couple of weeks ago. She's like, Tice, you got to come over. I want to show you something. So I went to her house, and it sounds like a really interesting story for a married man. She took me into the spare room, which she's converted into.
It's getting so much better, this story. I'm hook, line, and sinker, man. This is good. I trust you.
I'm gonna get to the punchline. She walked in, and she's decked out an amazing podcast studio. She's got a backdrop. She's got the microphone. She's got the big lights set up. She's got the couches. She said that she spent the whole most recent lockdown, whatever that was, like 6 weeks or so, just decking out this podcast studio. And I said, okay, well, tell me, what's the podcast? And she's like, no, I don't have one yet. I've just got the studio.
No way. Just hoping for far out Brussels sprout, like just to steal the limelight for a second. For you, what's the price of entry to like starting a podcast purely monetary value wise? Like, I know for me, like the light that's illuminating these beautiful eyes right now is like a $12 Kmart buy that's USB. Easy. Mm-hmm. Laptop. All right, fine. I needed to get a new laptop. That's a saga that I don't want to get into because it hurts too much. New laptop, about $3,000. That hurts. Microphone, 120 secondhand. Done. Mm-hmm. Zoom subscription. Sweet. And right there, like I feel like you've got enough. If you're planning on putting video up, that's all you need, really. Because the cameras on laptops are pretty good.
Yeah, well, yours especially. So you've got the brand new Mac. I've got a MacBook Air, and I'm coming through on that camera.
It looks great.
Now. Well, it still looks good, but a little bit like you. I've got a face light behind me there. I think I've got 2, so there's a little bit of pink coming out behind me there.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, not bad. These 2 lights were $60 off Amazon. This mic I think was $200.
Perfect.
Had the computer. I spilled coffee all over my last computer, which meant that I had to make a purchase as well, which was painful. I guess it was $2,000 or so for that. But it's not much. And I think especially with the with the actual recent technology, like you're proving right now, you don't need a whole heap of fancy tools. I think it's so funny. Like my mate Trace, we get so caught up on the superficial stuff, and we forget about just bringing some decent conversations to the table. That's why I love looking back at Joe Rogan's podcast from 10 years ago, because it's
snowflakes.
It's so
snowflakes coming down on the screen. Snowflakes coming down on the screen, and they're doing absolute dribble. Like, well done. I mean, and that's one thing. Like with my own podcast, like my first 6 episodes, I did like in person back when you could do that with a couple of Apple headphones and a headphone splitter, like you used to do with a girl that you wanted to date, and be like, let's listen to the same song at the same time and use one of those little jacks. That wasn't a euphemism for anything. 100%. And she's like, no, I've got a splitter so we can both use 2 headphones. And I was like, damn it. Oh, well, fine. Using that. And that, like the quality of audio on my first couple of episodes, like borderline want to tear them down and not have them. Like anytime anyone's like, oh, listen to your podcast. I'm like, which episodes? And they're like, oh, the first couple. I'm like,
It's like me. Whenever someone says they saw me do stand-up comedy, I was like, where were we? And it's either an apology from me or great, yeah, good night. It was a really good night, wasn't it? Just because
that was actually one of the good ones.
Yeah, that was one of the good ones. I was at a school a couple of years ago, and I walked in. There was a teacher there, and he's like, "Do you do stand-up comedy?" And I go, "Yeah, I do." And I was very green. And at the moment, at that time, the only comedy rooms that I was doing, like 9 out of 10 of them were in front of 4 people, which you've seen before. And you've seen me bomb with great passion in front of 4 people. And that's what a lot of gigs are like in the open mic comedy scene.
And the other 4 people are the other comics that have been up on stage bombing 2 minutes beforehand. But you think out of just the mercy rule, like in football, when a team's getting done by 100 points, you go, can we just end this? Like, nobody's enjoying this. Like, let's just call it. You'd think that they would have a bit more empathy for the next person on stage bombing and maybe throw them a bone and laugh. No, it's the opposite.
It doesn't happen at all. And I've got I come here and complain to you about the fact that they've got no empathy for what I'm going through. But if I get off stage after a bomb or a good set, my mindset is, okay, I've just bombed. I've got no time for you. And if I have a really good set, I'm like, I'm too good for this place. I'm not hanging around to watch this. So it's just I'm adding to the
ego roller coaster of a comic.
It really is, man. Anyway, dude, it's been a while since we've actually caught up. Obviously, we've been shooting a few texts back and forth, but what's been happening? It must be 2 months since we caught up properly.
Oh, and then some. Like, I think there's a good chance the last time we properly had a chat was when you did my podcast a few months ago last year. And since then, like, it feels like there's so much more that's gone on in the world in terms of, like, you know, you and I being separated via just distance, but not just distance and all that. And I know it feels like cliche to bring up COVID and all that sort of stuff. But when you're geographically challenged, like our friendship is right now, like, it's been a thing. Like, it's an actual factor in being able to catch up with people. And then I feel like everyone in the last few months has been so condensed in, because, like, oh, you're allowed out now. So it's like, shit, I've got to see family, got to see extended family, going to see like these friends that are within a certain radius. And then, like, everyone crams so much into Christmas. And this was, you know, mine and Kate's experience is like, Christmas was not a holiday.
Yeah.
Christmas, because the timing of reopening and everything was just go. And we kind of got to the end of Christmas. We're like, I think we need work to just have a break from people.
Yeah. And it's a weird feeling as well. I've been going out to some comedy rooms lately, and dude, last night, I know I messaged you, but last night,
how's that been?
Last night was awesome. I went and I did a gig at a room called Death or Glory, which is like a pretty cool. It's a pretty cool open mic room on Chapel Street in the city. And I thought I'll go and pop in Tuesday night. I'll go and check out the Comics Lounge, which I've been doing a bit more of. There was a couple of good acts. Dave Thornton was up. Actually, I don't know him. I don't know a couple of them. One of my mates, just from the open mic scene, who started to make a breakthrough, he got up as well. But they said it was the biggest crowd that they had in like 2.5 years. Dude, the place was pumping, and
awesome.
It's weird. It's so awesome. But I was just telling you that because it's even me as a relatively social bloke. I've been going out, and I would say I'm past it now. But the first couple of weeks of being in a room filled with people and just having that chance to chat again after 2 years of this kind of communication. It was such a shock to the system. It's like a really good shock to the system, but it was definitely noticeable. I was going, oh my gosh, like this is a really different experience to what I've had.
And given what like my job these days is, which is a beer salesperson, like, cool, that sounds boring, but what that means, my role has taken me around all these venues where you're doing comedy, I'm in there trying to sell beer. So I'm on this sort of like ground level chatting to all these people about like, so how's business been? And January was cooked. Like January with Omicron coming through, it was just, you could have, say, 80 people booked for a Saturday lunch. You get 30 rock up. And that's not normal. Usually you get a little bit of attrition, but not that much. Just because everyone's plans or ability to plan, go on an adventure, go into the city for us that live a bit further out, come out to where I live, go to the sanctuary and do an activity. Cool, you book it with a bunch of people and one person gets COVID and then you go, well, let's just postpone. So the ability to plan and do an activity is so disrupted and there's so much, oh, yes, oh, no. So it's like this almost like, sort of shadow lockdown where you're constantly disappointed because, oh, we were going to be doing this, but then so-and-so's got COVID or they have to isolate. So now we're just going to postpone. And all these venues are just like, it's just all over the shop. They'll have a Saturday that's quiet, but then a Thursday lunchtime where they have 80 people coming in one hit out of nowhere, not booking and being like, oh, people.
Yeah.
This is good.
That's what the guys were saying last night, that it was just unexpected.
But then they'll have only 2 staff members on. And this is the catch-22 is you're like, if people book, we had one, at our venue, like booked for 20, 60 rocked up when they booked for 20. So we only rostered, okay, we've got 20 people plus a Thursday night. It's pretty quiet. We can deal with that. And then 60 people rock up plus the 20 others that were already in there. And all of a sudden, these 3 people are now running around like cut cats. Food's delayed, the kitchen's under the pump. And then they start complaining like, oh, things came out a bit late. We're not really happy with the service. It's like, guys, we're doing what we can. Like the hospo sector at the moment, and it'd be the same for the venues you're doing comedy in. Everyone is like, treading water isn't even like a good enough term. It's like, I can't think of a good analogy right now, but everyone is just 1, exhausted and 2, just trying to make it up as they go along because staffing and then just the erratic volumes of people coming through.
Yeah.
It's just making it impossible for venues to barely like keep afloat monetary wise, let alone quality of service. And that's a fact because you can't just have 20 people on every night. You got to make money. So it's cooked.
It's been interesting going into different venues as well because I was super fascinated, and actually my friendship group's easy to catch up with now because it's shrunk since I've been so open about what I felt through the lockdown. Just keep watching my Instagram count. What's the word? Diminish. I was like, all right,
dwindle. Do you take screenshots?
Dwindle. I need to start doing it. I have a little thing with my wife where before I post something on Instagram, I go, how many do you reckon I'll lose through this? And she's like, I reckon that's a 12er. I reckon that, nice. and gradually I've refined the audience because I'm losing less and less, though some of the stuff's getting more controversial. So it's been really fun to see. But one thing I've noticed in the hospo industry is I was really fascinated to see how long this vaccination check thing would last for. And I don't know if you've been out and about lately, but man, I've been pleasantly surprised to see, and without throwing any venues under the bus, I've been so pleasantly surprised to just rock up to places and just see him just go, hey, come on in. Yeah. Especially, like I can imagine 100%. If I was a bar owner, as if like you're the ones who've copped it sweet for the last 2 years, you're going to start turning away people based on the fact that, the government's put this little extra expectation on them. So it's been sort of nice to see that. I think the way we're going as well, it seems as though things are going to keep settling down. And our little wrestle between Victoria and New South Wales, I think, is good for Victorians because they seem to just take a step further than us every time we make a new announcement.
100%. I've actually got 2 stories off that for you. So one, we just went on holiday down the coast for a week, and you're basically country at that point. And walk into the venue, and you could tell the people that were tourists because they walked in with their masks on, and they get their phones out. Whereas the locals just, cool, done, sit down, get a some sort of thing that contains liquid in their hand, and they're like, well, we're sweet. We don't need the mask. It's all good. Like, because it's so just petty is the word that I call it right now. And, you pretend to get your phone out and you wave your phone in front of the QR code and do it. No worries, mate. Yeah, cool. Yeah, cool. Yeah, sweet. No worries. Because, there's 10 other people walking in at the same time and this 16-year-old on the door doesn't really give a shit. And then today, back in my hometown, a particular venue that got into the media just before the mandate came through because they posted on Facebook saying, we will not discriminate. And this is before the mandate came through. It blew up, got on 3AW, Channel 9, all those sort of stations. Neil Mitchell got on there and called Healesville a dirty anti-vaxxer town. So there was definitely mixed feelings in town about this particular venue. Do you respect their right to say that? 100%. But as a tourist town, getting targeted as like dirty anti-vaxxers is for these businesses that have been shut for 2 years that rely on the tourist trade to top up, because there's not enough, when you're a tourist town, locals make, maybe 30% of your income of the year. You need tourists to actually survive, not
That's
just
brutal.
make extra. You need it, which is, and the sentiment around town is a lot of people, especially with the vax and all that, was, do I want to get the vax? Look, I'm kind of not anti, just indifferent. If I had a choice, like getting the flu shot, like, I get it some years, don't get it others, don't really care. But to be kind of held, not accountable, but held with a syringe to your head that you have to be able to open your doors and economically survive. It's sort of this economic blackmail of, well, if you don't, you can't run your business. So most of them went, fine, stuff it, I'll just get it so I can open and trade. And these guys said that, and they're all like, oh my gosh, now we're not going to have tourists coming because they're going to be scared, I was in there today for a pint. And there was like 6 COVID officers in there. You had a 19-year-old girl behind the bar. You had about 3-4 people at the bar trying to order. It's a locals pub, right? So you're talking like, think country pub, old mates. They just want the Carlton draft and they want it like yesterday because, 9 a.m. in the morning. Wasn't 9 a.m. in the morning. It's a stereotype. Brendan, shut up. And they're surrounding her and going, all right, so take me around and show me everybody and show me that they've checked in correctly. And we're going around to guess. But here's the absolute clincher. I can't believe I didn't tell you this before we actually started recording. There was a booking in the dining room in the bistro of a group of about 10 from the Canberra convoy that had just come from Parliament protesting the mandates. And these guys have just come in and started trying to check everything. One of them had a megaphone hooked up to his car. So when they left, started playing all this stuff, talking, yelling at them, just revving them up. And this poor girl's just like, I just work here. I'm not even the manager. They're on lunch. Like, she's the only one working, and they're all acting as though she is the one responsible for everybody's actions, lack of compliance. Like, it's just so blown out of proportion.
That is so brutal. When I was 19, I was working at Boost Juice, and like my biggest concern was making sure the ice bucket was filled. It's all I had to do. I would have been so intimidated. I reckon
it's like almost getting put on notice and fired for the ice bucket not being above 50%.
That's so crazy. I would have loved to have seen the just that conversation between those two groups of people. Was it pretty? What's the word? Did they get along okay while they were all there? And it wasn't until they left.
It was tense. It was tense.
Wow.
There was one guy sitting at the bar, and he probably would have been my age, to be honest. He's just looking over, staring absolute daggers into him, and he was just like, "Come on, get, go on, nah, mate, come on, get what." Yeah, like he would have been like, if any of them had kind of started standing over her more, guaranteed he probably would have got up and started getting in their grill. Like, it was tense.
It's interesting to see. I have zero problem with a COVID official, because obviously on a personal level, I would probably be more closely aligned to the truckers from Canberra. I feel like I'd have a better conversation with them. But the truth is, I understand these blokes are just trying to get their paycheck as well. My issue becomes when you let the power of that job come to your head and you turn into an absolute prick. Like, they're the things that I've had trouble watching over the last couple of years, like the last few weeks in Canberra, the last few years in Melbourne. And we've got examples of it everywhere. I guess it's just like the state of human hearts is some people are pricks and some people are lovely. But yeah, the job.
It's also our Australian nature. Like, I was listening to this book a couple of months ago called Gert Nation. Or the first version is called Gert. And it's this guy who's kind of written this history of Australia, but he takes this kind of larrikin take on it. So it's very factual, but he's very much like, yeah, right, mate, you're a dickhead, piss off. Like, it's that sort of, again, very Australian take on it. And sort of one of the overarching themes is our, like, just DNA level disdain for people that we knew were sitting at the same bar with us last week, having a pint, talking the same shit.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're given a position of power and they're acting like a dickhead in quotation marks. We cannot help ourselves. We go, oi, what are you doing? This isn't you. You're being disingenuous. Now, I'm not sure a bogan would know that word, but hypothetically, another word he probably doesn't know, let's just say that he does. Like, it's this, we can't deal with fake. We can't deal with bullshit. I think that's our problem with tall poppies as well as a culture, is we go, you're acting all hoity-toity as though you're better than us, mate. You were down in the same shithole having the same shit beer like last week. What are you doing? Why are you now pretending like you have authority over me, that you're better than me? You can tell me what to do. Mate, my kids go to school with your kids. What are you doing? It does our head in, and we can't help it as a country.
It's so strange. And especially, I don't know about you. I've always been slightly skeptical of the media. Like maybe the last 5 years, I've really woken up to it. I've really woken up to the fact that, all right, like not everything that we see on here is just cold, hard facts. Whereas growing up, I grew up in a family, my mum's 63. She grew up with a super traditional old bloke who every news report or every bit of information that they learnt from Channel 7 News. It was just an important time to get updated. And they had so much faith in it, maybe because back then there was potentially, I guess, more respectable journalists and a little more balance. You could get some views from both sides. But now, especially the last 2 years, my eyes have been open to the fact that, okay, I understand that not everything that we're seeing here is necessarily even anywhere near the truth. In fact, for me, I don't know about what your thoughts are, but for me, the last 12 months, especially, whatever I've seen on the news, I go, okay, well, so it's the opposite, I guess. It's just, and that's what was so interesting. You sent me the Australian Bureau of Statistics article that Channel 9 posted, and I'd actually seen it before you sent it through, and I was mind blown at the fact that, okay, I'd assumed that a lot of what we were talking about was overblown. I know there's a lot of emotion, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of concern, there's a lot of people who are just trying to do the right thing to get back to blah, blah, so many clashing opinions. But when you get down to cold, hard facts and you actually say, okay, like, let me just put my emotions aside for a little moment, which as a fairly emotional bloke is something I'm still learning to do. However, you see the statistics that the ABS just released and you go, okay, so a lot of what we had been being told the last couple of years maybe had a little bit of fuel poured on top of it.
And you know, I feel like I put a bit of mayo on stories sometimes and I tell them, but like the way that the media has spun things, and it's not, and I can now say that in a forum like this and not feel like I'm also putting mayo on what I'm saying, that I'm not exaggerating, because the fact is 83 people in Australia since the beginning of COVID, as of the beginning of this year, have died just of COVID with no comorbidities.
People hate that. People hate you saying that. People think you're an
83.
asshole.
So, but and what I loved about this story, number one, Channel 9 posted it. Okay, mainstream media, freaking well done. I was genuinely surprised when I saw who posted it. But number two, that's what I've said to a few people already, that, you know, tend to the other side of their interpretation of media. It's the Australian Bureau of Statistics. This isn't some journalist from a political side coming up and having this anecdotal take on things. This is cold, hard data. The data says this. It is what it is.
What do you do?
Interpret it as you will. Well, and that's the thing, is because everything has been spun and it's all been, anybody goes, you know, imagine a year ago going, can you please tell us how many people have died of COVID and how many people have died with COVID? And you hear these anecdotes like, well, if I got hit by a bus and they found out that I had COVID, they'd say I died of COVID. And you're like, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Oh, that's just, come on, of course it's not like that. And now we know for a fact that's exactly what was happening. The story that they were telling, and the interesting one that I found that I feel like I skeptically not predicted, but was like, oh, I bet you this will happen, is as Omicron started wiping through Victoria and the headlines used to be, you know, 14,000 cases a day, 28,000 cases a day, 64,000 cases a day. And I'm like, oh, $10 says it's going to now start switching. Instead of saying the number of cases a day, they'll start saying the number of deaths a day. Because the previous fear-mongering title was cases. Well, it's not working anymore because it's a number that we now can't comprehend. Once it gets above sort of 64,000, our little brains just go, difference between 64,000 and 120,000 isn't that much, right? So let's start using something that's more scary. Let's use deaths. And they go, great. Because now by that stage, there's a bunch of people in hospital dying of terminal cancer, happen to have COVID. that counts as a death. And that's not me being hyperbolic on a podcast. That's what the data says. It's not an opinion.
This is
now data.
It's the craziest thing as well. And we have to clarify that this isn't just our opinions, because I've had YouTube contact me. They tried to give me a second strike the other day for my channel because I was saying something about it was actually funny. I was speaking about the 2016 election, just having a bit of fun. And I was taking the piss out of some of the conspiracy theorists. And they've obviously, whatever it is that does their scanning, has heard me taking the piss out of the 2016 election. And they contacted the channel. They contacted me to shoot me an email and said, "Hey, you've got a strike. We're not allowed to talk as though the 2016 election was, dodgy or a little bit sketchy or anything like that." So I wrote back. I said, "Hey, just for clarification, you understand I was taking the piss out of the conspiracy theorists who say that it was quote unquote a rigged election." And they got back to me. I was thinking this will never work. They said, "Oh, actually, we've reviewed the content, and yeah, you're correct. It doesn't deserve a strike."
Oh yeah, true. You were just trying to be funny.
Like, I was just trying to have
in that context. I'd be like, "Oh, good. You're saying I'm trying to be funny. You're not saying I am funny, but I'll take it because it means that I get a strike."
I say that I say that to just to clarify that this isn't Tyson Popplestone. This is the Australian Bureau of Statistics, and I don't know, like to your point,
based off death certificates, like it's.
To your point, one of the things we heard early in the piece, and I also was labeled a conspiracy theorist for believing it, was that whole idea of you get hit by a bus. You just mentioned this. Just the other day, did you see I don't know if it was the health officer, someone in the government in New South Wales came out and spoke about why there'd been such massive counts of cases up in New South Wales. She said, look, and I can send you the video. This isn't me making stuff up. I watched it yesterday. She said, and I think again, Channel 9, she said, the last few months, our case numbers have seemed incredibly high because we had a 28-day back catalog. So if you had if you had had COVID in the past 28 days, you tested positive, and then you broke your arm, you were no longer a COVID patient, and you went to hospital to get treatment for your COVID, for your broken arm, you were there as a COVID patient. That was considered an admission to hospital with COVID. So those days where you saw 60,000 and you couldn't quite comprehend it, it's because it wasn't what we were being told. So she said, okay, we've just shortened that time period now down to 15 days. It's no longer 28 days, it's 15 days. So
at risk of you getting another strike, is it incompetence or is it coordinated?
This is where I get confused. Because admin, you've worked with me before. We used to work together, and admin
I'm so glad you brought this up. Yep.
admin is a great hatred of mine, and I would look for a shortcut wherever I possibly could. And if that meant, if in your dreams
Satan was admin, it would be a spreadsheet. Satan would be a spreadsheet with horns.
Well, that's one of the hardest
and
things
you'd be sweating bullets in the middle of the night. Like you can't handle it. And I'm saying that as a friend.
It's one of the hardest things about day trading, since I've been doing that the last 12 months, is a lot of the follow-up is done on Excel. And I've been learning as hard as I can on the day trading side of things. And then it gets to Excel and I'm like, oh no, this is way harder than day trading. How do I open it?
Good luck.
Where do I put this information? So I say that to say, if I found myself in the New South Wales government, I give them a hard time about this now. But if for some reason it was easier for me just to count someone from 28 days ago as a COVID patient, every day of the week, I say, you know what?
I'll do it at the end of the month.
I know it's not idea. I'll get back to it. I'll submit this report. But for now, let's just say it's a COVID patient. And they'll say, Tyson, he's got 4 bullet holes in his chest and his hand's missing. COVID works in mysterious ways.
Wait, which one's less paperwork? COVID. Oh, just say COVID. Just put it's too much effort. Can't be bothered.
Yeah, it's very strange. It's very strange. But yeah, I tell you, it has been nice to see a couple of mainstream news articles just say things that I think a lot of us know. Like, I think anyone who's even slightly open to just facts are aware of the fact that some things, rightly or wrongly, whether it was deliberately or accidentally, probably accidentally in a lot of cases, and just through people like me who are super lazy with admin, go, you know what, stuff it. Let's just put it through as a COVID case. Let's knock off at 6. That would be so much easier. But I heard another one I heard, which blew my mind the other day, was, I think it was Triple M, I was driving in the car and they said, oh, new research on COVID booster shows that the longevity of protection from COVID is a lot smaller than, of the booster is a lot shorter than what we first anticipated. And I was
like 16 days or something, or 6 weeks. It's like super short, isn't it?
I couldn't tell you.
It's like in the weeks. They counted it in the weeks. I can't remember the number, but I heard the same thing. And they're saying weeks, not months, not even years. It's anyway, like weeks.
Man. Yeah, it's so strange. It's been so strange. But anyway, hopefully we're on the way out. It seems as though we are. I feel as though the last month and a half or 2 months has been personally the most positive I reckon I've felt in the last year and a half, at least, just in terms of the state of things. I felt like for a while I was going to have to get out of Victoria because it was just too much. But lately I'm like, you know what? I actually still really enjoy the city. Things are hopefully coming down a little bit. I know the election's coming up. Maybe there's a few things going on there. But yeah, how have you sort of felt it? Do you feel as though we're coming into a better place now, or are you a little bit still on the tightrope of uncertainty?
In terms of a state and a city and a culture, that Australian culture, but then within that, the culture of Melbourne. Caught up with a mate just the other day. Julio.
Yeah, the great man Julio.
Yeah. So he's been up in Queensland for the last nearly 2 years now. He came down for the weekend for work and caught up with him quickly on Sunday. And I'm like, dude, Melbourne. Like, he lived in Melbourne for a number of years, came back and then moved up to Queensland with his wife and kid. And it's like, how's the city actually feel for you? He's like, and I'm like, does it feel pretty like it's PTSD? He's like, no. And the word that he used has really stuck with me. He's like, it feels traumatized. I'm like, oof. In recovery, I would have said maybe apprehensive. It's like, no, like, rocked up to a work thing, people that I've worked with for the last number of years. Like, hey, go on, man. Going for the high five. I'm like, oh. They step back. And they don't know what to do. Yeah, they don't know how to say hi in person anymore. It's like, oh, we're all good. And then, like the whole part of it was like their company going out for drinks because the first time in 2 years together, because everyone's been working remote. And some people that he's like previously would have been up and about and ready to go out were like, oh, I might just go home. Yeah, cheers, guys. See you later. Bye. And then I'm like, I get you. Your statement about traumatized, mate, it holds. That's rough.
So crazy,
it's I feel like we've healed, but we don't fully appreciate the depth of the scar tissue that goes into this recovery and what's going to take for us to recover long term. I feel, CBD is still not where it was. Again, the venues that I'm speaking to, the venues that used to be popular, like the venues that used to do really well are now doing good. Your venues used to be okay and now doing not good at all. And there's a bunch of venues that are now for sale because they're already middle of the road, not super. So I feel like it's on the up from the way things looking, but I feel like, there's definitely a ways to go. And, the speculation with housing market, interest rates, China shining laser points in the eyes of the Marmy and stuff like that. Can you
explain to me what's going on here? I read the little article and so I've heard about it. I can't keep up. This is one thing I keep saying. There's 24 hours in a day. I sleep for 8 of them. I spend 3 hours with my son. I try and spend an hour with my wife. What's that take us to? That's like, I don't know. Say we've got 10 hours left if I've done the maths right. Then I try and put a little bit of work into actually doing my work. And then I'll go for a run, do my exercise. Then I've got an hour and a half left. I go, all right, where does this time come from to be able to keep up? Now, do I spend the next half an hour reading about COVID, or do I read about Russia, or do I read about the laser pointers being shined on our ship? So what the heck is going on here?
So I'll read directly from the article, so I'm not telling tall stories. Chinese PLA naval ship attacked P-8A Poseidon with a laser last Thursday. So a Chinese ship effectively shined a laser pointer at an Australian aeroplane in Australian waters.
Oh, was it at a ship or a plane?
It was a plane. So it was a Chinese ship to an Australian plane that had 4 Australians on board. So effectively, I did something similar when I was in probably 12 years old with my mate Jason in the back of his dad's Ford wagon. We'd just been to Dandenong Market earlier in that day, and we'd hustled a couple of stalls to purchase some laser pointers. Remember, laser pointers were like so hardcore when you're a teenager. Like, oh my gosh, look what I can do.
I still think they're pretty hardcore.
This was an old Ford Falcon where the seats faced the opposite direction. So when you're sitting in them, you're looking out the back of the boot at the traffic behind you. And we're on the Frankston Freeway. They're coming behind us, and we've got our little laser pointers, and we're shining them in the eyes of the driver behind us. Little shits. I can't believe we did that and didn't cause an accident. Car zooms past, gives us the middle finger. His dad's just like, why'd they do that? That's a bit rude. We're like, oh, yep, cool. But the fun thing is, not the fun thing, we knew that we'd like done something that was pretty stupid and pretty dangerous. What's happened now since I first sent you that article? So China sent this light laser, and what it is, it's a laser that's pretty much used for when you're painting a target that you're potentially going to shoot, and to guide the missiles there, or you're sussing out just the distance of how far it is. And it's known, from what I can read and research, is you only do it either one, if you're being a dick, you're sending a message, or you're planning on actually shooting them. And the fact of where they were in that territory, it's either incompetence or you're trying to stir shit up. It's the equivalent of, like, you know, the big kid at school hip and shouldering as he walks past. You're like, mate, you didn't have to do that. What's going on? But this is the thing. China's response to that has been, no, we didn't.
That was always my response. Just then you said two things which I think situate me perfectly with the Chinese. Is I was always, my best mate at school was 6'4", and no one messed with me because I was walking next to him. And secondly, I also denied any claim to wrongdoing anytime I was accused. It's just a boy thing. Like, you can put labels on it. You can say this superpower. That we can look at it from an economic perspective. But essentially, if you get a group of blokes together and you've got a really strong laser pointer, you've had 4 sakis. I get that's a Japanese drink, but maybe they imported some. You've got a massive laser pointer and a plane goes past. Any day that I say,
how far do you reckon that plane is? Oh, I don't know. 500? No, I reckon 600. Done. $100. 200.
Yeah.
Fine, you pussy.
Oh,
let's
Wing
find
Shay,
out.
don't do it, Wing Shay. You're going to get us all in trouble.
It was 600. You owe me. Yeah. Next day, Xi Jinping. Hey guys, did you happen to paint a target that happened to be Australian in Australian waters?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
Cool. Why is G Win wearing a nice new $200 jacket? No reason.
No reason. It's so crazy, isn't it? Man, this world, I feel like we're going through an interesting, are we going through, I want to call it like a growth spurt. You know, I remember when I was a teenager, I went through a growth spurt. My heels would get all sore and my knees were really sore. And I felt like an old man, despite the fact it was my body getting ready for a little breakthrough. Please tell me that all of this stuff, I don't understand completely what's going on in Ukraine. Some bloke explained it to me last night. He said to me, I go, what's going on? And he goes, essentially, Putin's just embarrassed about the fact that, like, when he, when he became the King Dick, that was around the time of the fall of the reach of the Soviets or something. And now he wants to prove himself. I thought all that happened. Do you know how long he's been in power for? Because I thought
1990 odd, I think it was.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think it's close to 30 years. And the conspiracy theory is he's actually got Parkinson's disease, which is why he's actually started bringing in some laws recently that will control who his succession goes to if he needs to, and relinquishing some of the powers. So that's one of the reasons why some people speculate why he's starting to flex muscle now of all times.
Yeah.
Is he's making the most of COVID. Things are unsettled. There's also, I think, a major gas pipeline that goes through there that also hooks up places like Germany, which is a major supplier, the UK. So if they can hold that area of Ukraine, because effectively, I was reading another article that was saying, like, the Russian economy is pretty stagnant. It doesn't grow as much as it needs to, given how large a space it is. Mm-hmm. So one of the only options really left to them to grow economically is through acquisition. So it's like buying
acquisitions. Acquisition's a very nice word for it, isn't it? Yeah.
To raise GDP, to be able to, go, this is now our money and your dollar's worth nothing. And now look, hey, our economy's growing. It's like, yeah, it's growing.
That's so funny. I'd love to be able to. That's right.
Cool. It's like stealing your car and then going to the bank. Hey, I've got extra assets. Why? I've got a new car. Where'd you get a car? I've got a new car. Like, it's worth this much.
I acquired
Put
it.
it
Did
on
you
my
steal
balance
it?
sheet.
So many
Doesn't matter.
questions. Don't
Now
get
give
yourself
me this
bogged
loan
down.
so I can build this new gas pipeline, so I can do this and buy some more tanks and buy some more rockets, because in order to grow the military power, they need money to come from somewhere. So they just invade a country, steal their resources, and go, cool.
Oh my
And if I was China, I'd be looking at Australia going, hey, I don't like paying for your coal. Because that was a fun story that came out. Like the fact that when we, said there needs to be an inquiry into the Wuhan lab leak incident, potentially, they then cracked it and had their, 13 odd grievances with Australia and put all these trade embargoes on our coal. And there was these ships sitting in port that couldn't deliver their coal from Australia. And then it went through winter in China. And the cities in China that are reliant on coal-powered plants to give them electricity started running out of coal. So these major cities, the size of, Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, it's a big country, started having rolling blackouts and started running out of power in the middle of winter because they didn't have any coal. So guess who had to finally go, fine, we'll accept Australian coal again, because without it, we can't run our cities. Which is why anytime Australia, and this is probably why, Scott Morrison, flaws and all, him standing up to China, I think, I don't know whether he thinks our coal's bigger than it is, but I think he knows that, at least in that context, China needs our coal to run a portion of their cities. So he whips it out every now and again, slings it around, and a lot of us go, you idiot.
Where'd you acquire that?
Yeah, right. But then I think that's part of why China then retaliates in such a, how dare, a couple of boys being shown up trying to do chin-ups at the chin-up bar in front of some chicks. I could do way more than that. And it's like, well, it's just bruised ego that a country as big as China needs someone as small and insignificant in their eyes as us, because we've got almost the same population as Taiwan, and that's a whole nother kettle of fish for them.
Oh my gosh, man. So between China, between Russia and Putin and Joe Rogan, the news articles are absolutely just rolling out. I can't believe how much these three people have just caused chaos over the last few weeks.
And what are like you said just earlier on about not trusting media. Another article, I know it's not one that I sent through. It's did you read about how was it 18 out of the top 20 Christian Facebook groups in America were found to be run by Russian troll farms?
I heard about this. That blows my mind. That blows.
So now, every time I read anything or see any post, I've got that ratio. I'm like, there's an 80% chance that this is a troll from either Russia or China. So I take it with that grain of salt. I listen to 20% of it.
It's cool. So crazy. It's so crazy. You look at one Instagram page, you go, oh my gosh, there's a revolution in the American church scene. You go, oh no, it's just in his studio in Russia, just putting together a fake little post. It blows my mind. I tell you, it makes me wonder. It makes me wonder about Joel Osteen, whether or not he's is his church legit or is he a Russian implant? No, it's very interesting, man. And actually, it's a little bit beyond me. I don't quite understand how I struggle to start a Facebook account. If you can, I tried to put up some ads on Facebook a couple of weeks ago, and my computer almost broke because it was such I've already confessed about my lack of skill with admin. The fact that Russians or whoever it is can put together these bot pages to fool so many thousands.
I guess they are better than us. Like, I can't do it either. Like, it makes a lot of sense.
It's really insane, man. It's mind blowing. It's mind blowing.
But yeah, that article that I sent through. So this person had written an article around, without bringing it up and reading it, around what happens if you listen to Joe Rogan and only Joe Rogan for a week.
And for context, she was from The Guardian.
Yes. Yes. And so she listens to a random, I say random, she said it was random. And then later in the article goes on to say, I chose this one because it sounded interesting. And I chose that one because, which if you ask 90% of Joe Rogan listeners, I think that's how they listen as well. Like, oh, MMA? No, I'm not going to listen to that. Oh, a scientist talking about this. That sounds interesting. Oh, a comedian? You know, you pick and choose based on who the guest is. But anyway, she picked a few. And she listens for 5 days. But the thing that got me, though, is she opens it with this premise of like, okay, there's all this fuss around sort of the COVID disinformation. And he's rejecting science. He's anti this, he's anti that. And, you know, specifically mentioning the science side of things. And she's listening to this, you know, first day while she's going for a walk. Next day on her way to a friend's place. And the third day, she's listening to a Joe Rogan podcast after complaining about the lack of science and everything on her way to her Reiki. Am I saying that correct? On the way to her Reiki session, because she's worried that listening to Joe Rogan for 3 days has upset her aura and her what, not her crystals, what's it called? Her spiritual equilibrium, her chakra has been upset. So she's got to go see the Grandmaster Reiki Master to clear her energy from listening to Joe Rogan spouting out anti-scientific disinformation to a Reiki Master. I know I'm ranting and yelling, but like, seriously,
it's a fair
how
point.
is that journalism?
That's a fair
this
point.
This is your opinion, and your opinion is you're a muppet. Are you kidding me? In the same sentence, the cognitive dissonance is so...
I didn't even think of that. That is so funny.
How you go at him for having like alternate doctors on, and you're believing in crystals and shit? Are you serious? Shut up. You should be cancelled, because that's just dumb. You can disagree with him, but you're saying two things that are 100% in conflict with each other in the same sentence.
That's really good point.
That's idiotic. Like, that hurts my brain that that they have a platform. But you know what? If I'm being more reasonable, and I'll calm down and stop yelling.
No, please keep yelling.
She should be allowed to write that article. But if she's allowed to write that article, he should be allowed to have his platform. End of argument. Done.
Here's the thing. Great argument. I do not know anyone who's listened to a couple of episodes, say a month, of Joe Rogan. Maybe even that's a stretch. I go through my phases. I don't know anyone who has listened to, say, 10 episodes a year for the last couple of years who thinks he's an asshole of a person. It's always the people who don't want to hear anything he has to say because their friends from work have an issue with him. I love that she said that on a couple of day 3, she went to go for a walk with one of her friends, and she said, "Oh, hey, I've been listening to Joe Rogan." And her friend goes, "Why are you doing that? What are you doing?" It's so much easier just to go, okay, look, he said the N-word. He's apologized, but we're not going to forgive it. Everything that he says is redundant. Sometimes, I don't know why I do this to myself. Maybe you do it as well. Every now and then I'll go to a person's page or a YouTube channel purely to get triggered. And my favorite place to go to get triggered is The View on YouTube. So whenever
what was Whoopi Goldberg's thing lately?
No, that the Holocaust had nothing to do with race. It wasn't to do with race.
Yes.
Essentially a misunderstanding. You go, Whoopi, you need to stop.
The Holocaust wasn't racism.
Yeah. This is what she's saying. But Joe Rogan's a problem because he hates blacks, he hates gays, he's transphobic, and he's bald as well. And no one really likes bald people that much. And
that's the real reason, people.
I listen to these girls on The View, and it serves as a massive reminder for me to go, okay, this is the importance of actually being able to listen to the people that you're criticizing. Because I don't know what her name is. She's like a 70-year-old comedian, and it was as though she was getting an education live on The View, which I'm pretty sure she was, because she introduced it like, all right, American controversial podcast host Joe Rogan. I don't know. He's got a couple of yuppies that listen to him. And one of the girls on The View interrupts and she goes, "You know, he gets 200 million downloads a month, don't you?" And she goes,
yeah. And that's the, like, to it's probably an oversimplification. But the fact that he's getting 11 million listens per episode, and I read the other day that, CBS around the 500,000 mark. Like, pretty sure Survivor and like SAS Australia gets as many like views. Okay, cool. Like, so the fact that the media have a bit of an axe to grind with him because he's out doing them, 20 to 1. I'm like, oh yeah, that kind of all just makes sense.
as if you wouldn't take, I would be pissed as well. If I had to be at, if I had to be at
been
CNN,
around 50, 60 years.
Oh, if I was Don Lemon,
yes,
and I had to go to work, my shift starts at 10. I had to get there at 9 to do I had to dress up like a flog.
Do admin.
You have to do admin.
He probably has to fill out admin and timesheets and stuff.
You have to confidently sit there and pretend that you believe what it is that you're saying, which I think maybe for him it's no issue. But I would be very angry as well, because Joe's traveling around doing his comedy. He seems very happy. He seems very healthy. He seems lovely. He's open to hearing other. And this is the thing as well. This is what makes me laugh so much about it, is so many of these people would actually be, maybe not so many, people that come from the world that these people who don't like him come from would be welcome on his show to have a conversation. Sanjay Gupta, that CNN doctor, is a perfect example of that. Came on just to try and convince him of the importance of being vaccinated. And Joe and him had an awesome conversation. It was great.
It was tense in parts, but it was overall good. What did my head in was when Sanjay then got grilled by the mainstream media afterwards, and then pedaled back a bunch of what he said and started to go, oh yeah, no, I should have said that. And oh yeah. And then goes on to Sesame Street and is, talking to Big Berg, telling kids to get vaccine and stuff like that. And you're like, and a client scientist that he had on the other day after the blowback and everything. And at the end of the podcast,
what happened there?
Climate scientist pretty much just said, well, you only had me on because you had the other guy on that was the other opinion. And Joe's like, I would have had you on anyway down the track. Yeah, sure. Obviously, I've copped heat, so I'm trying to have the conflicting opinions closer together. But I want to talk to you anyway. It's not just because I had him, I have to have you. Because the guys tacked the whole episode. I have multiple messages from mates listening, going, what is this dude's problem? He's just got this axe to grind and is like super snarky the whole time. And at the end, he really showed why he was kind of snarky and the angle he's coming from. He was a little bit butthurt that he was the second interview, not the first. Is he had the client that, the climate, not even skeptic, because he acknowledged that, there's shit going on. I'm just saying it's not as alarming as Al Gore is making it out to be. And this guy came on and say, well, he didn't say anything wrong, but he left out this and this and this, and he's right. And you're only really having me on because you had him on and just had this had to try and get it out there. It was just like, oh, dude, you don't realize in a 3-hour chat, your pettiness comes out like your balls are hanging out.
It was really, what was really obvious, was it? It was super clear.
So clear. There's parts where you're just like, and I think that's one of the skills that Joe has as an interviewer, is when people are literally having a stat. And there was one comment, I can't remember off the top of my head, but there was one comment I remember going, oof. If that was a general conversation, you'd be like, yeah, right, dickhead, and you'd just walk off. And you wouldn't talk anymore, because it's obviously someone that's just got it. When you're talking to somebody that's having a go at you and they're not listening, they're just trying to shoot you. And he just goes, okay, well, how do you, what about this? And moves the conversation forward. I'm like, oh, that's skillful. To suck it up, to not react, because he could have reacted. I would have reacted. But he kind of just swallowed it and moved it forward.
That's one thing I like. He often talks about how he views his conversations with people as though so his background's in jiu-jitsu, in martial arts.
Yes.
And he says it's almost an intellectual jiu-jitsu fight where he'll sit there and he might prod to see if there's any weakness or see if there's any, just any response that is interesting. And then he might, if there is, he might push it a bit harder or he might back off. And I think having that attitude, it changes your whole approach to a conversation, because all of a sudden you're not just trying to defend your views to the death or whatever, or to your own dismay. You're open enough to be able to hear it. You understand that your own ideas need to be challenged as well. So many times I'll come out and think I've got something figured out, and I'll mention it to my wife, and she's like, you don't genuinely believe that, do you? And I go, no, I'm 100%. And then she'll show me an article and I go, okay, I'm 90%. And then she'll show me one more article. I go, okay, I'm 74%. And then by the time she's actually, whittled away my emotion and shown me some facts, I go, okay, well, I'm not going to admit it, but in my mind, I'll acknowledge the fact that she was right.
100%. And I even wrote this down in preparation for this little chat, is this whole thing around public humility equals public cancellation. Is because our lives are so public right now, our appetite and tolerance to be humble, which is what it takes to go, yeah, see, I thought that Israel was way more vaccinated than that. There you go. you're wrong, you must be cancelled. Bang, you're out. Like that fear, like sure, that's an extreme example. But when we're all living life online and after 2 years in isolation, the majority of our lived experience has been vicariously through the interwebs.
Mm-hmm.
The fear of digital cancellation from this faux audience through a screen is priority number one to defend,
mm-hmm.
which is why you either attack or you run or you stick to your guns, because I'd rather just take it than admit that I was wrong, because there's no coming back from that. Yeah. And that sort of fear and what that's done to our psyche is, again, that trauma factor for all of us.
It's amazing how much power a big platform can have on what you say. Like even before I was saying that you almost, it's crazy to think that a lot of people are having to watch their tongue and bite their tongue and just sort of question what they're saying. Self-censor. It's incredible. Like I'm trying to make a conscious effort to make sure that it doesn't, like to an extent, obviously there's things that, I was saying in private, which my mates will understand I'm totally taking the piss, but someone who doesn't know me might
go, Tyson comment. We get it.
I had a shocker the other day. I had Joe actually flick down here. Obviously for those of you listening, this is a mutual friends of ours. And we just met up with a chick called Zoe and her husband, Matt. We were sitting at the table. I just met Zoe and Matt. I sat down at the table and we're at the beach. And anyway, Zoe said, "Oh, like a beautiful day." She goes, "You guys are going to go for a swim?" And Joash goes to me, he goes, "Hey, Tyce, you're going to get your shirt off and show everyone your abnormally large nipples." And she goes, "Oh, Tyce, do you have abnormally large nipples?" I said, No, they're bigger than usual, but I do have an abnormally large penis. Zoe gave me a look as if to say it was a polite. I'd known her for 7 minutes, and I'd been warned that these guys, they don't really have that. They don't really have that potty humor. They're not really.
That's why you said it. You can't help it. For those people listening, I feel like I'm allowed to say this because I'm on Tyson's podcast. Is the beauty, and one of the things that I love most about Tyson, why when I heard that he was getting into comedy, it was such a yes, finally. Over years, we'd even talk about like your hit ratio of jokes, because you could not help yourself. If there is the potential for a joke where most people self-censor, filter, and don't say it, Tyson says it and just hopes that it sticks. And I remember being times like, dude, you're at like a 9 out of 10 like miss rate right now.
It was a miss.
And there was times you were like 50-50 where it was like, dude, that was freaking hilarious. You can't help it. So
50,
if anything,
is very rare.
You making that dick comment is you just being you. You're being true to yourself. That's your truth.
Well, it is true, but in my truth, I've lied straight to her face because I do have big nipples and a tiny penis.
Oh, no.
But it goes really fast. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, wow.
That's so funny. Here we are. Well, thank you. Thank you for that compliment. But it's 50-50 was a very big compliment. I think a 90% miss rate is more accurate. But what was it? Oh, that's what we were saying before that tangent. But it is amazing, these platforms who you want to be able to post your content on. You want to be able to talk. You want to be able to just have like an open dialogue, which is as honest as you know how to have, and you filter your way through ideas. And they can just say, "Oh, unfortunately, you don't fit the community guidelines. This doesn't fit our sort of speech requirements." That's what's sort of nice to see a couple of alternatives coming up. But before we talk about that, you
great example of that is Mr. Trump up again. Like the fact that, I mean, just wind things back a touch. Imagine 10 years ago, we found out that the former president of the United States, Bill Clinton, all right, let's do hypothetical right now. After Miss Lewinsky, which there's a certain Robin Williams bit for you comedy nerds out there that, I can't help, but there's this, if you're listening, just YouTube, Robin Williams, Monica Lewinsky. It's his take on it is just, it is the perfect take on the entire scenario. But say post that, we never heard from Bill Clinton ever again. He was not allowed to do any interviews anywhere. He was just silenced. That's the equivalent of what's happened to Donald Trump. Now, I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm not wearing a freaking MAGA hat. The fact that he got cancelled off social media, the former president of the United States, Yet the Taliban has their own Twitter page. The fact that you can watch bloody slave auctions on YouTube happening in Syria by the former president of the United States, it's a bit, rambunctious.
Yeah.
Definitely offensive. Definitely says some things he shouldn't. But the fact that he gets cancelled, but you can watch slave trades happen on YouTube. Are you kidding me?
It's so insane.
It's bullshit. There's no other word for it.
Yeah. It's so insane. It's so funny that
and you're
Taliban,
just thinking about your page getting cancelled now that I've said that. Sorry.
I'm just thinking of a way to self-censor even harder, so I can justify to the great Lord of YouTube that my intentions are pure.
This dickhead from Hillsville is an anti-vaxxer. He lives out in a dirty town. Get rid of him. He's been drinking beers the whole time. Can't listen to him.
That's so crazy that the Taliban have a Facebook page. Is that still true? Are they
Twitter.
still up there? Oh, sorry, Twitter.
Yeah.
That's insane.
And on YouTube, there was, I haven't looked recently, but the slave trade that happens in Syria. In Syria now, it's cooked.
Did you see the
all the beheadings and stuff like that?
Oh, that's mind blowing. Did you see? I'm going to tell you the wrong country. I'm going to say I think it's Iran. So Pride Month, they have Pride Month around the world, or I think it's Pride Month around the world.
Yeah.
BMW Australia put up a post, and the BMW logo was just Pride colors. It was Pride rainbow colors. Fantastic. So you'd go to BMW Australia, and their logo for that month was the Pride March. Was the Pride logo.
Yeah.
And then you go to BMW Iran or BMW. It was in the Middle East somewhere, and it was just the BMW logo. There was no Pride Month going on there, and it's just so strange to watch the way that cultures work, because obviously BMWs just do whatever sells their cars. They're not going to be selling cars in Iran or wherever they are if they're celebrating Pride Month, because I'm pretty sure a lot of the extremists that live there go, you know what, this isn't a company that I want to stand with. Whereas over here in the West, we go, of course we will. That's the kind of company we want to celebrate. Do we?
Where's my virtue flag?
Where's my virtue flag? Car? Can I get a Pride car? Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so
it was a great example of Princeton coming out and saying, it was around the systemic racism conversation that happened, last year with George Floyd and all that sort of stuff. Apparently Princeton came out and was like, yes, we are also systemically racist. But because they also receive government funding, if there's systemic racism of a culture, they need to get investigated about whether they should be being funded. So the government had to pay money to investigate Princeton about their systemic racism. And of course, it came out that they weren't systemically racist.
Oh, what a relief.
But also the taxpayers had to pay for that investigation that was purely based off virtue signaling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We're living in such interesting times. I love it. I love people. Had you finished, man? You look like you're about to keep talking.
I'm done. No. I'm just trying to get to the Donald Trump's platform. But anyway.
I keep forgetting about that. We'll get to that in a minute. It's so funny. It's so funny watching people navigate their way through a time like this, because obviously adults in a social setting, especially in like a big corporate place, everyone, I guess, feels as though they have to say the thing that they feel they have to say before they get themselves in trouble. And a couple of years ago, I was working at a school, and the kids were told that we're going to have an AFL star. So AFL, biggest sport here in Australia.
Yeah.
They were told we're going to have an AFL star come in and teach the kids how to kick footy. So this has been something that's happened for the last 30 years. I remember AFL stars came to my school when I was a kid. I was so excited. I didn't care. I was a Carlton supporter. We had some St Kilda players come in, and I was just, I didn't care. I was pumped because these guys were my heroes. Anyway, same story. The school was in Torquay, which is near Geelong here. Geelong's a big football team in the AFL. I had a prep class on the day that these AFL stars were coming in, and the kids were losing their minds. Anyway, we didn't know who we were going to get. And long story short, two women walked into the building, and the kids like, oh, awesome. Okay, these guys are obviously just about to introduce the players. This is great. And I came up and went to the girls. I was like, hey, girls, like, how you going? Are you here with the AFL stars? And they're like, oh, we are the AFL stars. And I said, oh, like I was fine. I don't really care. I was like, hey, great to have you here. Like whatever. Anyway, I introduced it. I introduced these girls to the club. No one knew who they were. But one kid came up to me in tears, and he's like, "I just thought we were going to get real AFL stars." And I go, "Mate, no, you've just got to be happy with the stars that you got." He's like, "This is crap."
Self-censor. Don't say that.
He's like, "I wanted to get some real stars," and I just love it when you have someone so innocent, obviously coming from a beautiful place. He was just excited to see the blokes he actually watches on TV come out and teach him how to play footy. He's come up to me cracking it because he didn't know who these girls who, to be fair, I had a better drop punt than both of them on my right and my left foot. So, I mean, I was a real AFL star of that lesson, but it was so funny to watch this little kid. No. Anyway, so I say all that to say that it's interesting to watch the way people respond, and very interesting to see how a bloke like Trump comes out swinging with this platform, because I think the vibe I get from the article I read was, I'm pretty sure it's only in its beta phase where it's being tested on a certain amount of people. It's going to be hard though, because do you remember that app Parler? And then I think it was Apple, maybe Amazon and Twitter got their powers together and said, "Look, this isn't good for any of us. Let's just deplatform them. Let's just remove." So it's going to be, it's hard much as sorry, go on, yeah.
Because so much of, and this is no longer a conspiracy, like if you looked into the data of people that have been cancelled on platforms and what their political leaning was, is you can easily say that it's the majority left people that have been cancelled. So anytime a new platform shows up and all these previously cancelled people jump on it, it's going to be majority right. So they all jump on and all their fans jump on. So it becomes overly extremely right. And you get all the crazies. You get your QAnons, you get your white supremacists, like you get all those on there. And by posting the shit that they do, yes, they should be allowed to say it, but it gives the other side and the other platforms and the powers that be, your Googles, your Amazons and all that, the data to go, see, these guys shouldn't be allowed to exist. And then you read some of the stuff and you're like, that is rough. And when it's 90% rough, it's really hard to defend. It's like your mate that's constantly a dickhead. And you're like, "Hey, mate, just tonight, can you just not?" And he's like, "Cool." And he's a dickhead the whole night. Some bloke wants to go him. You're like, "Dude, I told you. Could you just one time, can you just be normal? Can you be balanced? Can you be considered and not want to punch on with everybody in the venue?"
Yeah.
And he just can't help himself. So I feel like a lot of these new platforms, whenever there's a new, because it's been so controlled for so long and it's now so systemic, any new platform that pops up is going to be a magnet for these people that have been cancelled. And because the people have been cancelled from a certain leaning, any new platform is just going to be so one way to begin with. But if we get to give them a chance and they can just be a little bit more, not saying change your values, I'm just saying don't be your dickhead self.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't try and start fights. Just be a little bit normal to begin with so I can grow a base and be balanced.
Well, I don't understand.
Because there's no balance anymore.
Yeah. I don't understand how a new platform works. I hadn't heard about Rumble until the Rumble guy the other day put out an offer to Joe Rogan to come to his platform for 100 mil. I didn't know whether it was like a marketing stunt. If so, bravo, well done. But
we've now heard of Rumble.
Great. Yeah, but the idea of going across to Rumble from YouTube, we no one says, "Oh, I spent the afternoon on Rumble." Everyone says, "I just spent," we went down a YouTube rabbit hole. I'm a culprit for it. YouTube's where it's at. It's where the people are hanging out. So it's going to be really hard. Like whether it's a Parler or whether it's a Truth or whether it's a alternative to like a YouTube, a Rumble or something like that. I just think it's going to be a big pull for people, even like me, who got a strike the other day for saying the wrong thing, for breaking the wrong thoughts. It's going to be hard to get the majority of people, even some of the majority across there, that aren't, as you say, hurting based on the fact that they've been abused by a political stance that they completely disagree with.
100%. I mean, yeah, there's another example. When I was working for a church and we started a new service, it was a bit alternative at a different time.
Sunday at 5, baby.
Didn't follow the norm. We had food afterwards. We hung out, and it went for less than an hour and did everything different. And part of why I said, I don't think this should continue, was because the people that it was attracting and the culture of the place really surprisingly quickly Because remember at the end, like, chatting, everybody having a meal, because I wanted that sort of community factor where it's actually community. It's not just about the person on stage having a chat. Yeah, who cares? Like, it's inspiring. Great. Good on you. We can listen to a podcast nowadays. Let's actually build relationship and community and have chats and build one, like, do life with one another. It was when the after conversation was talking about how bad church was and how shit main church was and how they should do this different, how they should do that different. This is so much better. This is what it should be like. All that stuff's terrible and they should be doing this and they should be doing that. And I'm like, oh, no, this is not good. This is, sort of imagine like Jack Dorsey sees Twitter now, like going, oh, shit. This isn't, when I started this isn't what I thought it was going to be. All I know is this isn't what I want it to be. Where's the alt control delete? Shut down. And that was my vibe with Sunday at 5. Was like, this is not healthy. This is just everybody just venting and just grieving and like, good, do that. But like when an entire community is made up of people that are venting and grieving, you need some people that are beyond that. You need some people that are past that are good, that can help them beyond that. Otherwise, it just becomes this pity party.
Yeah, man. Sorry
to jump in.
Zero
patience for that.
Oh no, I get it. For what it's worth, though, Sunday at 5 was my favorite service. And at risk of jumping too far into your analogy, I went back to City Life Church the other day just for shits and gigs, dude. It was so strange because I walked into the building, saw Paul Molyneux was there, so the new head pastor. I had a chat to him. Great guy.
Paul's back, love Paul.
But it was so funny, man, because I sat down and no one else is going to get this reference, but you'll appreciate it. Daljit was on the stage going, we're going to join the live groups, huh? We're going to get the live groups going, huh? Maybe you find yourself a new wife, huh? Get a new wife. It's time for upgrade.
It hasn't changed in 30 years.
It was so strange to go back there. So it was weird. It was like visiting a town that I used to hang out at, because I've got such great memories there with you and with our old crew. Yeah. That it's weird to go back to a place like that and just feel like a complete stranger. But anyway, it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. Sorry, I've jumped right away from our Trump platform just to talk to you about City Life Church. But it was pretty cool to be back.
It's a fascinating thing, and I think, that's all I got to say.
Yeah, it is interesting. It is interesting, man. Dude, we've been talking for like an hour 20, so I'm going to let you go because you got a wife at home, and so do I actually.
Well, if you need to go for it. I'm happy.
I don't need to go. But I got self-conscious for a minute because what is it? It's 8:21 on a Wednesday night. I thought
today's
you might
my day off. I'm good.
Oh, you had the day off. Tomorrow or today was your day off?
Today's my day off, but I slept in. Like, I'm good, man. We're good.
Yeah. Did you just get back from a holiday as well? Did you say?
Yeah, went away for a week. That was cute. It was good. It was cold. We went to the beach.
What was
we live out in the hills.
We
live out in the hills. So when we go to the beach, it's we're going to the beach. Mm-hmm. Must be warm. Let's go for a swim. Yeah, it was 18 degrees and windy.
Yeah, I get it. Did you go to Mornington Peninsula?
No, we went the other side. We went down to not Point Cook, past there, Apollo Bay.
Oh, nice, man. Oh, so you went
past your part of town.
Away. Yeah, sweet.
Great Ocean Road. It's good. Just to get away. Because if I'm at home, I have to do something. I have to paint the house. I have to fix the fence. I have to mow there's so many projects. I'm a compulsive, like,
that doesn't sound like you.
Home. Shut up. I don't know what you're talking about. I can sit still. Like, that was
so can I. What are you talking about?
Yeah, we're both great at sitting still.
That's so funny. It's amazing that we've been sitting down chatting for an hour 20 based on our past reputations. I remember sitting with you.
I'm not drinking beers the whole time. Like, that's not what keeping me occupied. But anyway, you remember sitting where? Go for it.
I remember sitting next to you in speaking of City Life at a staff meeting one day, and we were in that Ken Holland room out the back. And the meeting had been going for 20 minutes. And I don't know what I was doing, fiddling with a pen or tapping paper. And you looked at me and you go, hey, dude. I go, yeah. He goes, 100% you've got ADD.
Because I'm diagnosed too, I get it. It takes one to know one.
I'm not diagnosed, but I know you're 100% correct. We're self-diagnosed. That's very funny.
This is why we do podcasts, because we just go, hey, what can we do as a living that doesn't involve sitting at a desk all day, every day? 3 hours a day, change somebody, we can do that. But like all day, every day, like,
that's so brutal.
Makes you wonder, like, bring it back to Trump. like that dude's on some gear. Like
100%.
that dude's brain would be like, I would love to have a chat with Donald Trump, like just to understand him. Like I feel like I'd be peak self. I'd be meditated. I'd be, do a cold bath in the morning, meditated, have some lion's mane, and just be like dialed in and just be like, and shut up and just ask good questions. Go. If you listen to Lex Friedman's podcast.
Oh, sorry. I thought you would give me a hypothetical question that you had asked Donald Trump.
Imagine if he had.
No, dude, I haven't listened to Lex Friedman, but I've seen a lot of him on, his name's getting around a lot at the moment.
Really good interviewer, asks really thoughtful questions and sets them up really, really well. But yeah, listen to him and then just ask Donald Trump as like just a couple of really good questions and try and get him going, just to understand him, just to get that, like, what makes you tick? Because we see him as this big, rambunctious, offensive. I was thinking about it the other day. Like, I feel like we've got, when you have something to eat and you get food poisoning and now you can't eat that anymore, or you drink bourbon on New Year's Eve and you vomit in someone's bed the next day and you can't drink ever again.
This feels personal.
What are you talking about?
Actually, so this is 2014. Your now wife, Kate. I had a big night at her parents' house, and the only bed which was available was Kate's. She wasn't home. I was in there with my wife, but it was a night of vomiting. I hit the rakia a little too hard.
Someone made homebrewed bourbon.
Is that what it was?
That's what you had. You had homebrewed bourbon.
And I got a little excited. I thought my tolerance was higher. I was planning not to drink in 2015. And the contents of my stomach from the past 4 days was all over your wife's bed, which was the first day when I first met her, the very first thing I said to her was, "Hey, I'm so sorry I vomited in your bed." And she goes, "Beg your pardon, I'm Kate. Who are you?" You know what I mean?
No. Yep. Anyway, so that sort of experience, you never want to drink again. I feel like that's what people have with Trump. And anything associated with Trump is we've got this psychological taste aversion to anything associated with him and what he said and what he did. And that everything went so hard in the other direction that stuff reason. Like my favorite compilation is all of the lefty Joe Bidens and ones like that going, "We're not going to take Trump's vaccine. Oh, that's ridiculous." And now saying you got to take the vaccine. It's the same vaccine. It's just pulled our brains out and gone, "Don't need that anymore." It's ridiculous.
Dude, is there a light changing color in your background?
No, it's just my complexion getting redder as I get warmer.
Yeah, is that what it is? I thought I just saw a slight change of color. Yeah, it's interesting, man. I reckon this is the reason that I've got to get away from. I was going to say I got to get away from these platforms. That's not true because it's a part of what I was about to say. Doing my own thing, trying to start my own thing and getting involved in. So, like outside of this, obviously, relax running. I do some running coaching. Trying to start that was difficult because you need to figure out how to work these platforms and stuff like that. But then you got to feel for people who are kicked off here because it's sort of the go-to for so many people. And that's why I sent you a story today about this chick. She was on a show called 90 Day Fiance, I think it was. I get the vibe. It's maybe I don't know if it's American or British. It's their version, I guess, of what we have here, Married at First Sight. Yeah. So she was a TV celebrity. Obviously, you would know nothing about TV sort of dating shows and stuff like that. I feel like this is probably a difficult concept.
No, I was the first person kicked off Bachelorette and fine.
Yeah, but okay, you were.
I got zero experience.
However, I
was obviously a reject. So I got better luck with skipping girl vinegar in the background.
she's a pretty girl and knows how to skip. I love.
Would you like a rose?
Girl. I love a coordinated girl.
Sorry,
that's an interesting story though, because okay, so you told me it's 48 hours before I get back to my story. 48 hours or 2 nights of, all right, you're on the Bachelorette. It's Bachelorette, the one you were on, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So you're on the Bachelorette and it's 2 nights of, all right, from 12 till 12, you're going to drink, you're going to talk, we're going to film, sort of go. And then you don't need to be a genius to see that the buildup of alcohol, a long day, it doesn't treat everyone really well, but you happen to have an ability to be able to manage yourself. So you were quite boring in your own words. which is why she didn't actually
they,
get rid of you. You got kicked off.
Well, yeah, that's part of it. I guess you've been long enough now. So they actually control your alcohol. So you can't get uber intoxicated, which actually has a reverse effect. It's like reverse psychology, because you're at a party and it's a bunch of dudes that you've just met and there's no alcohol. So you're like, frick, this dude's boring. Get me a drink. And there is none. So you get more anxious. And they bring one around and it's like light beer. And you're like, ugh, cool. This dude's also boring. Or like, so, and what they do is they kind of stoke the masculine competitive fire as you're going. And they start doing these interviews before she rocks up going, so how are you going to like approach her? What are you going to do? Are you going to try and have, so everyone's thinking about their tactic and how they're going to, we're going to get chat. And then, you started, early in the afternoon and now it's like 9 o'clock. So the anticipation's been building for so long that, mate, a goat with high heels could walk through and you'd be like, yes, I'm having a conversation. And you get Osher coming out every now and again, just stoking the fire, just kind of, revving it right up. Hey, you better be this, you better be that. So when she comes out, it's like blood in the water and the sharks just go for it. So your textbook dick alpha males don't give a shit about anybody else, just pounce. And somebody will be mid-conversation with the person. And a guy will come over and go, hey, mate. And you'd be like, sorry? And you got cameras on you. And you'd be like, yeah, I'm going to talk to her now.
Oh, so awkward.
Imagine that in real life.
Oh, so awkward.
But imagine in real life, you're having a one-on-one conversation with somebody for the first time ever, cameras. And then another alpha dude in a suit that you've just been trying to pretend to be friends with for the last 5 hours comes over and goes, chop out, mate. I'm going to have a chat. And every 5 minutes that happens is dudes are just cutting dudes. So there's a group of me and a couple of other guys. We're sitting back watching this just like for like a couple of hours. It was just a revolving door of the same like couple of guys chopping each other out mid-conversation. And she's just sitting there playing nice with a little earpiece in, listening to what the producers are saying. I'm like, this is, sorry, mum, this is fucked.
Yeah, it is. That's a perfect description.
So messed up. This is weird. And then they've all had, 2-3 chats, and the couple of us betas, I guess, sitting at the back, just like, I don't want to treat her like a piece of meat. Sit back and then, finally break in when, one guy's been chatting for 8 minutes, 10 minutes. It's like, well, I have to talk to her at some point. Hey, Rob, mate, do you mind if I, you've had a bit, everyone else has had 2 minutes, you've had 8. Can I please kind of maybe have a minute?
It sounds like a really confused orgy.
Oh, where do I put it? What's going on? Oh, it's something in my eye.
You've had 8 minutes. I've only had 1. I'm so confused.
Right. So you sit down and have a chat, and it's the most awkward thing ever. I'm like, yeah, I guess I hate cliches. I love cliches. I'm like,
Dude, it's one of the hardest things at the best of times, like to approach a girl that you're actually attracted to, who just quietly, Ali, she's a pretty girl, the girl whose series you're on. Both married men, won't go too far into it. Very attractive. She looks fantastic. But I would be nervous at the best of times with zero cameras going 100%. Up and saying how. Then knowing, okay, this is going to be broadcast to Australia. Every one of my mates is going to watch this. They don't know whether I've got game. I've got to try. I always tell them I've had game. I've always lied to them about that. And now they're about to see the opening conversation. I didn't know she had an earpiece in as well. So she's getting stuff told to her from the directors.
Assuming, right?
Okay.
So here's my assumption to just prove, if a certain network decides to say that what I'm saying is bullshit, is I had a 20-second conversation with her a couple of hours beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, she's had probably conservatively 60 conversations with individual guys since. And I wander through. She goes, hey, Brendan. Remembers my name straight off the bat. I'm like,
wait,
I can't remember somebody's name.
Talking to her?
Like when I walk over to her and she's sitting on like the couch.
Oh, sorry.
They're
So
like, oh,
this is
hey, Brennan, how are you? And I'm like, you remember my name from like 5 hours ago? That's cute. I barely remember the other blokes' names and I've been hanging out with them for like hours and chatting to them. And then when you're talking,
I see what you mean.
there's this, you say something and there's this. So, Brennan, tell me about this. The way that it's framed isn't a natural conversation.
Yeah.
And there's this little pause, and you'll notice the hair is over a certain
Interesting.
side. You've got the plait coming down, it's covering there. And the delay. But yeah, it's all very interesting. And then the next day you come back and that's all part of the same night that's recorded as one.
Is night
and you
two
film
easier?
until 4 a.m. No, you're cooked, you're exhausted.
Yeah.
Because we get home, we finish filming at like 3 a.m. And then you get back to the hotel in Sydney by 5, 6. And
In the
you're
morning?
up at 9. Yeah, you're up at night 9.
Oh.
9:30, and then by the time you get all your suit back, like same suit from last night, and the suit that I had, for some reason, the shirt gave me a rash on my neck. So anytime I turned my head, it was like chafage all around here. So the second night putting that shirt on was just like pain. And you're filming from 4 till 4 a.m. So by the time you're doing that rose ceremony, that was like 2:30, 3 a.m. So, and that gets dragged on. They're filming that multiple takes. And then, I'm the first bloke kicked off, fine, whatever. And then they're straight in your face. Like, so how do you feel? And you are exhausted by this stage. In my opinion, deliberately so, exhausted so that you're not your normal self. So it's good content because you're going to, say stuff that you normally wouldn't say in front of national TV.
Yeah.
So, but luckily none of my stuff that I said on camera, at 4 a.m. Went on to TV.
Oh, so you actually got away with
why.
What did you say?
Fuck off.
Did you really? Did you?
Oh, pretty much. I was just like, guys, I'm just exhausted. I'm out of it. I've said it so I fronted up as soon as I came off. There was one camera and I just sucked it up. I was like, yep, guess it is what it is. And I think and this was what made it through. I'm like, hey, I'd rather be the first one to get it done out of the way than get dragged on for 12 weeks and find out no as well. So at least I got the no up front and I've saved myself from some time. Real straight down the line of logical, typical me.
Yeah, that's perfect.
And then I sit down and I was like, whew, and then they come over and start like super close up and start trying to pump you for the emotional stuff. And I'm like, guys, I can, the textbook was, first night, like, hey, Brendan, would you say it's a frenzy in there? I'm like, the guys are definitely up and about. Brendan, would you say it's a frenzy in there? And remember to use the question in your response. Yep. So, Brendan, would you say it's a frenzy in there? I'm like, the guys are definitely excited to see Ali. Brendan, would you say it's a frenzy in there? And I'm like, I think once everyone gets some food in them, they get to hang out a little bit longer. I think everything's going to go really well. It's going to be a good night. Brendan, would you say it's going to be a frenzy in there?
It's a fucking frenzy. These guys are mental. They're all insane. Perfect. We got the cut. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Exactly. Like, I know you guys want me to be the over animated like I am. And I think that's part of the thing is you go into it knowing who you are and knowing how you're perceived. You can immediately pick how they're going to perceive you and therefore want to portray you as the overexcited, desperate guy that was divorced and wants to. I knew that was potentially how they were going to try and portray me. So when they're asking me questions like, is it a frenzy in there? I'm like, I see what you're doing. No, I'm not that guy. Sorry.
Oh,
and surprise, surprise, I'm the first one kicked off.
Yeah, it's funny. It's interesting because you never think of that when you watch it. You just think, oh, wow, Ali said she didn't want him. But there's so many factors because these guys have got a TV show which they've managed to refine and craft over the last 10 seasons.
They've got to make it interesting. I would have been boring.
Unfortunately,
I get it.
Unfortunately, it's true. If you're not going to play the game, yeah. But
100%.
Interesting, man. Dude, I'm going to love you and leave you because I'm sweating like a little trooper. I'm going to go have a shower, get myself organized, try and be a good husband for an hour before Jesse goes to bed. And
this has been good.
Dude, it's been so fun. It's been awesome. I had no idea we are going to chat for this long, but I'm so glad we did.
And we didn't even get to talk about books.
We didn't talk about books. I didn't even talk about the chick selling her farts, but I spoke about that on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. Just wanted to hear your thoughts on it.
I want to talk about the farts and the correlation with, TikTok and OnlyFans, but I had notes and everything.
Did you?
Like,
That would have...
Good. Like, ready.
Damn it.
The correlations with the book that I like and meaning and fine. We'll just call it part 1.
Wait, seriously, we'll do another one.
Done.
Let's do another one.
Easy.
No, that's awesome. I said to Jessie before, she goes, "Oh, how long are you going to talk to Brendo for?" I go, "About an hour. Let's see how we go." I had a
He's a
feeling.
pretty boring guy. What do we know?
Man,
It's not really a frenzy in there, so we'll keep it low key.
That is awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, brother. It's so good to catch
me.
up. This beats a couple of text messages back and forth by far.
100%.
All right, brother. I'll catch you later.